So I want to talk a little bit about the whole Jimmy Kimmel situation. Everyone at this point is familiar with it, so I'm not going to spend minutes regurgitating the news. Everyone knows what happened, how it happened, the whole FCC, Nexstar, Sinclair, ABC, and the Jimmy Kimmel show getting canceled, suspended, preempted, whatever the term is. It's still a developing story, so we don't know what's going to actually end up happening. I do have a feeling that he is going to end up back on the air just because of the backlash that has been coming from the left, which shouldn't be a surprise, especially considering the comments that Kimmel made weren't even that bad. Like, if we're going to be honest, so I heard the whole controversy and I immediately saw the clip and I'm like, that's it. Like, that was my first reaction as someone who hasn't been too happy with the way certain people on the left have reacted to the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I honestly didn't really care too much about certain people getting fired because a lot of the people that were getting fired were pretty much saying rest in piss, burn in hell, like all these really horrible things that he deserved it. Those people, you know what? Like, as much as I'm always against cancel culture and I'm a proponent of freedom of speech, I'm not necessarily going to support or celebrate these people getting fired. But on the other hand, I'm not going to shed a tear about it because, it's hard for me to shed a tear over these people losing their jobs when they would celebrate and laugh and dance if someone that they didn't agree with, someone like me, was shot. They'd be like, well, it's one less horrible person on this earth. He deserved it and he had it coming and this and that. Because that's how they reacted to Charlie Kirk. And a lot of people see themselves in Charlie Kirk because of their beliefs. And when people say that about Charlie Kirk, they feel like they're saying it about them. That being said, while I understand a lot of that backlash against these people because it's just completely insane, the amount of support for political violence that we have in this country is a lot more than I thought, unfortunately. Jimmy Kimmel didn't even say, I'm not going to say I agreed with what he said, but to the point where he needs to be pulled off the air because of that. And the comments that Trump and the FCC were making, the head of the FCC, they were making comments that were pretty much saying, yeah, we're going to throw our weight around and pull people off the air that we don't like. And he even said Fallon's next. That's what Trump said, immediately after Kimmel got pulled off the air. So it's trying to pull your muscle to get rid of people who you don't like. And using the government to do that is something that I'm never going to support. And I understand, people are trying to make the argument, well, it's not like he's being fully censored. He can go somewhere else. He doesn't have to be on network TV. He can start a podcast. He can do this or that. He could be on cable. That is not subject to FCC regulation. All that is true. So I'm not going to sound the alarm we're turning into a dictatorship. This is the early stage of authoritarian rule and Nazi fascist, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to be in full panic mode like a lot of folks on the left are. But I think what it is with the right is that they have been on the receiving end for so many years with this cancel culture. They're now rebranding it as consequence culture because of the Kirk assassination. They're using that and they're seeing how effective it is. Big companies like Microsoft and other all these companies are firing people and they're finding their post, they're finding their real name, who they are, where they work for, and they're calling the employers and getting people fired. There's been thousands of people that have been fired due to right-wing backlash based on comments that these people made on social media, and they like it. It feels good. It feels good to finally be, the one giving out the punishment rather than being on the receiving end. Because make no mistake about it, there has been a lot of really fucked up shit that has happened over the past, I would say, decade or so, where people who said things that weren't necessarily that horrible, that deserved to lose their entire career, well, that's exactly what happened to them over really dumb things. I remember a few years ago there was this person who was driving and he gave the OK symbol or something and someone was filming him and he got fired because of that. And a bunch of different people. Roseanne Barr is the most common example of someone getting fired. and apparently Obama like put pressure on ABC to fire her. So it's interesting. That's okay, but this is not okay. And what she said wasn't that good either. But if we're gonna be honest, like it's the if you're the spirit of the First Amendment, like you're either completely for it or you're completely against it. If you're a free speech absolutist, or you're I like free speech if it's speech that I like. So it's not really free speech, because that's we've seen a lot of hypocrisy from both the left and the right, and you can accuse me of being one of those people that just always does a both sides with everything, and you're just a dumb centrist that doesn't believe in anything. Like there's a lot of attack. Like anyone who doesn't fit neatly into a box, like you get attacked just as much. I think they hate you more, honestly, if you're in the center than if you're just like far left or far right. They hate people who can think for themselves. They hate it so much. But it's the truth, though. Like those of you on that have been saying snowflakes, woke, this and that, you guys have been going a little bit too far. Like like I said, there were certain people that did outright celebrate the murder of a father and someone who was just engaging in his freedom of speech, and he got silenced with a bullet, and people are celebrating that. Like, yeah, all you clowns shouldn't be talking about freedom of speech because you straight up support the murder of people who you don't agree with. That's not freedom. That is not the First Amendment. I mean, you have your right to say that. I don't think everyone who said that should be rounded up and locked up. But but what Jimmy Kimmel said wasn't even that bad. He was talking about MAGA using his death for political points. But when he actually did talk about Charlie Kirk specifically, he had nothing but good things to say, which I actually was pretty happy with the remarks that he made about Kirk. Bernie Sanders also had some really good things to say, and other people on the left. So it's not like everyone on the left is supporting violence, is supporting terrorism. I mean, there's a difference between what Jimmy Kimmel said, which while I don't agree with and I don't really necessarily like the way he framed it, there's a difference between stuff like that, like what Jimmy Kimmel said, and the things that people like Hassan Piker and Destiny have been saying. They're borderline. They're pretty much engaging in terrorism, the way that their comments that they've made on the assassination, where they're endorsing and they're supporting and encouraging further violence against those on the right and Republicans. But yeah, there should be there should be more incidents like the Charlie Kirk situation. Destiny definitely way more than Hassan. But yeah, I mean, it's a scary time that we live in, and I don't think that the government should be using their influence, even if they didn't direct. Like Jimmy Kimmel was fired by ABC, or not? He's technically not fired yet. It's preempted by the affiliates, by Nexstar and Sinclair. But since they're not airing it, they're the two biggest affiliates for ABC, so they effectively get no revenue, and there's really like barely any markets that you'd be able to air it on. So that's why it got pulled. ABC, people talk about how they have so much leverage that they can use, but at the end of the day, if the affiliates won't air it, what's going to happen? You know what I mean? Like it's not a practical thing to just say like, oh, ABC can just put their foot down and say, no, you are airing this. They could just say go, which is pretty much what they're doing. So they're trying to bring Kimmel back. They want him to make an apology. ABC does, and they want him to turn down the temperature, which is probably something that with his pride and ego is not going to just say okay. You know what I mean? Like, if he comes back, he's going to come back with a vengeance. And he's going to have a lot of things to say. So I don't know what's going to actually happen as a result of this, like what the future holds for Jimmy Kimmel, if there will ever be another episode of his late night show. The contract was set to expire the end of this current television season, so like spring, I think May of 2026. So I don't know if they were even going to renew him because of the whole late night industry not being in a good place right now, the ratings being very low, and it's just overall not being relevant. That being said, this might be a good thing for Kimmel and his television show if it gets brought back, because you're bringing more eyeballs into it now because of the extreme backlash and outrage that has come of this. So, yeah, it's very interesting the way that this has been unfolding, and we'll see how it ends up. But yeah, like the FCC threatening to take action and demanding that people that they don't like being pulled off the air. Yeah, I'm against that. I do not support that in any capacity, and I want people to imagine how you would feel if it was like a Biden or an Obama or the next Democratic president, because there will be another Democratic president, whether you like it or not. It's just the cycle, and that's what happens. You're not going to have J.D. Vance for 8 years, and then his vice president for 8 years, and then his vice president for 8 years. You know what I mean? That's just not the way it works. So eventually a Democrat is going to come back in power, and you have to ask yourself, these tools that the Trump administration is using in a lot of instances, would you be comfortable if shoe was on the other foot? But I get it with the cancel culture. Now the shoe was on the other foot, and there is a cultural shift that is taking place, and it feels good to be in that position of power. But I caution those on the right and those who are cheering and celebrating this to realize that we're going down a bad path, and we're going down a slippery slope here that is honestly not encouraging the legacy of Charlie Kirk with free speech and free discussion, free debate, so on and so forth. That's what he died for. And I'm not going to be one of those people that tries to, dictate what Charlie would have wanted. I didn't have any personal, I never knew Charlie Kirk, but it just feels to me, based on, everything I've seen with him, that if he could see everything that's happened as a result of his death, specifically when it comes to the issue of government getting involved in speech, I would like to think that he would condone that and would not be in favor of that at all. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, like I said, and we'll see what happens. But as far as this being the end of the First Amendment, I mean, it goes against the spirit of the First Amendment. I don't personally like the government action in this case, but yeah, let me know what you guys think.